Abi Webster makes her come back to Coronation Street next week after enjoying a break in Mallorca with her husband Kevin, but her mind is fixed on seeing his brother Carl, with whom she has been secretly involved in a fiery romance. Unable to resist Carl's pull, Abi eventually admitted to herself that her marriage to Kevin had crumbled once she crossed the line with his sibling. Kevin, on the other hand, was faking ongoing cancer treatment, desperately trying to keep Abi by his side. When Abi uncovered his lie, she resolved to stay in the marriage for the children's sake, yet still couldn't stop herself from continuing the affair with Carl. Their scandalous fling was hidden for a time, until Tracy Barlow stumbled upon the truth. While Kevin took the children away on holiday, Abi opted to remain behind, claiming she would follow later, only to seize the chance for an afternoon of passion with Carl. The situation spiraled when Debbie Webster suddenly collapsed, leaving Abi to call for medical assistance. Later, when she reunited with Carl, the pair couldn't resist falling into another heated embrace, completely unaware that Tracy was watching them through the window. Tracy, in classic manipulative style, has been blackmailing Abi for money in exchange for keeping her mouth shut. While Abi toyed with the idea of escaping to Germany with Carl, he instead chose to throw himself deeper into his illegal car theft scheme to come up with the cash. Abi temporarily rejoined Kevin in Mallorca, leaving Carl behind, who wasted no time getting entangled with someone new. When the Websters returned, Kevin was livid to discover Carl back at the garage, having been roped in by Tyrone Dobbs after previously being sacked. Kevin furiously ordered him to finish his shift and never show his face there again. The very next day, Abi, unable to keep away, secretly went to see Carl, confessing that she can't get him out of her head. But Carl seemed distracted, constantly being interrupted by phone calls from Dylan Wilson. When Abi caught sight of the caller ID, she pressed Carl about Dylan's intentions. Carl tried brushing it off at first, but as Dylan's calls persisted and Abi's questions grew sharper, he was finally forced to come clean. Carl revealed that Dylan, along with Brody Michaelis, had been working under him, carrying out thefts to order. Abi was horrified by the revelation, especially in light of the recent hit-and-run involving a stolen vehicle, and she was left completely shaken. Could this shocking truth destroy their affair for good? Coronation Street star explains Betsy and Lisa's explosive new clash. It's easier to lash out than explain. Coronation Street actress Sydney Martin has lifted the lid on the fiery confrontation soon to erupt between her alter ego Betsy Swain and on-screen mum Lisa. In episodes due to air next week, Betsy heads out for a big night to mark her 18th birthday, only to roll home the following morning after spending the night with Dylan Wilson. When Lisa tries to sit her down for a serious chat, Betsy refuses to listen, snapping that she's no longer a child before storming off. Opening up about Betsy's frame of mind, Martin explained, "She's already been through so much. Betsy lost her mum a few years back, and earlier this year she also lost Mason, so she's had to process a lot of heartache at a young age. I think she's been seeing people quietly without telling Lisa because she doesn't want to be babied anymore. The relationship between them is fascinating because their communication is so strained. Lisa's desperate to shield her daughter, while Betsy just wants independence. But at the same time, because of Lisa's work, she tends to be very controlling in how she approaches things, and Betsy sees that as intrusive," Sydney Martin explained. Although Lisa's actions come from love, Betsy interprets it as smothering. It feels less like a worried parent and more like being interrogated by a detective. So Betsy's instinctive reaction is to shut down, which in turn devastates Lisa, as she feels she's watching her daughter slip away after already enduring the loss of the partner she thought she'd have forever. Martin went on to say that Betsy is still figuring out how to process her emotions when it comes to her growing connection with Dylan, and that she's also fueled by teenage hormones, which makes her hide behind a tough exterior. She's still only a teenager, and deep down she needs her mum and the security of her family unit, but sometimes she snaps at them because it feels easier than actually opening up about her feelings, the actress explained. She added that she adores the on-screen dynamic with co-stars Vicky Myers and Allison King, pointing out that their constant squabbles capture the kind of everyday realism that Coronation Street portrays so effectively. But for Betsy, her milestone birthday will soon take a much darker twist, one that forces her to recognize just how much she truly depends on her mum. Coronation Street's George is left in total shock as he makes a horrifying discovery. George Shuttleworth is about to be plunged into upheaval on Coronation Street as the affable undertaker's life takes an unexpected turn. Recently, George has experienced a surprising shift, emerging as an unlikely heartthrob and even challenging Carl Webster for the attention of Weatherfield's women. With his clever wit and classic charm, George has found himself caught in a popularity battle he never intended to join. However, when his long-term partner Eileen Grimshaw flew solo to Thailand, George was left feeling isolated and uncertain about his place. Her absence created a gap in his daily routine, and it wasn't long before his sister Glenda stepped in, introducing him to a dating app in hopes of cheering him up. Sadly, George's first venture into online romance didn't go smoothly. His initial date ended in disappointment when the woman appeared far more interested in chatting with Glenda, who had accompanied him, than connecting with George himself. Humiliated, he left the evening feeling deflated and more discouraged than ever. Just as it seemed his love life couldn't get any bleaker, fate offered a glimmer of hope. While fixing a persistent leak at the cabin, George demonstrated his handy skills, catching the eye of Jenny Connor. The landlady couldn't help but be impressed by his quiet confidence and unexpected aptitude with tools. But as Jenny started to consider that George might be more than just a good friend, her hopes were dashed when her longtime rival Christina Boyd appeared unexpectedly, stealing the spotlight and leaving Jenny feeling uneasy all over again. What George doesn't realize is that this is only the beginning of his problems. As he tries to juggle unwanted attention, tangled romantic complications, and his conflicted feelings over Eileen's absence, he's on the cusp of a shocking revelation, one that could completely change how Weatherfield sees him and force him to rethink his future. Will George find true romance, or is heartbreak and embarrassment inevitable? As Christina drew George into her orbit, Jenny was left fuming on the sidelines, still stung by her past humiliation over Christina's husband's coffin. Oblivious to Jenny's feelings, George was enchanted by Christina's charm, leaving Jenny sidelined once again. Next week, George's attention will be ripped away from his complicated love life in the most shocking way, when he suddenly finds himself in the path of a stolen vehicle. At the wheel are Dylan Wilson and Brody Michaelis, both wrapped up in Carl Webster's dangerous car theft operation. Brody, eager to prove his courage, persuades a hesitant Dylan to join in his scheme to steal expensive cars for Carl. While Brody exudes confidence, Dylan is clearly nervous and out of his depth, yet goes along with the plan to earn Carl's approval. As the two speed through the streets in their stolen car, they pass George, who is left stunned as he realizes the dangerous situation unfolding before him. This reckless ride is set to trigger utter chaos. Viewers know that the stolen vehicle will soon cause a devastating hit-and-run, leaving a cherished Weatherfield resident hospitalized, critically injured, and fighting for life. The big question remains, will George come forward and tell the authorities what he saw, or will he stay silent to avoid getting further entangled in the mess? His choice could have serious consequences for multiple families on the cobbles. Coronation Street airs Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. on ITV1, with episodes also available to stream on ITVX.